How many times you almost died?
Oh, it must be over 9 times. Almost being rammed by a bull. I've been bitten by a monkey. I was followed by a pack of wolves.
So you get out of the wilderness. What is the first thing you're craving?
The first place I went was Starbucks. Yeah.
Did you ever have someone serious that said like, hey, can I join?
My British photographer came to join me. He lasted 6 hours on day number 1. Took a flight right back to Britain. You almost don't realize how far you've come until you see people try to keep up.
The following is a conversation with Ash Dykes, and I'm going to read out the Wikipedia article just so you get a little bit of a grasp of who this guy is and what has he done. Ash Dykes is a Welsh adventurer and extreme athlete. He achieved 2 official world records trekking across Mongolia and Madagascar before the age of 25. In August 2019, he achieved his 3rd official world record, becoming the first person to walk along the full 4,000-mile course of the Yangtze, the longest river in Asia. And in this episode, we will not only talk about what it really means to be an adventurer in today's world, how he feels when he comes back to civilization, but we also talk about the business aspect of things, the brand growth, history that he has, and everything surrounding, including his really awesome philosophy on life, business, and people. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's get started. Good to have you here, mate. Appreciate that. First thing I wanted to ask you is like, do you know how many times you almost died?
It must be over 9 times. 9, 10 times. Yeah, has to be. Has to be. From
Damn.
the alleys of India, almost being rammed by a bull, to being held up at gunpoint by a drunken officer, to obviously the river crossings with crocodiles, malaria, dehydration in the Gobi Desert. It's endless. Even aquatic life. I've even been bitten by a damn monkey. Like, honestly, I've been tested. I have been tested.
You've been bit by a monkey?
I've been bitten by a monkey. I've been bitten by a spider. I've been stung by a crown of thorns, which is like this big starfish underwater.
Ah. Do you think you're like overdue that something is gonna happen to you? Like, do you consider yourself like ultra lucky, or how does
I
that
hope
work?
not. Oh, I think through each one, I've been counting my lucky stars, but also learning from them. So
Mm.
I've never been bitten by a damn monkey again. I've never been held up at gunpoint. I have never caught dehydration again since Mongolia, and I've done,
Yeah.
some crazy expeditions since. And so, but there's always something new. I was filming with my TV crew in China, and I swam across the Yellow River. I just thought, that's 400-500 meter swim. It's fine. Yes, it's strong, but I'll go diagonally, cut across.
Yeah.
But not thinking that it's minus 12 degrees Celsius air temperature, and the only
Oh,
reason that the water hasn't froze over is because the flow is too strong. And so I'm swimming, and normally people, when they do ice plunges, right, they do, I don't know, 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes, and then you need to get on out of there. But this was like a 20-minute swim. And I skipped through the multiple stages of hypothermia, and I think I went straight into stage 3. Yeah, it was crying. So I'm there thinking I've learned so much, but then I've never faced that before. And then I do it, but then I won't swim across a river that'll take that long again.
yeah. Oh, I mean, what is stage 3 of hyperthermia?
I think that's when your body starts to go into shock. It
Mm.
almost stage 4 is when your body effectively starts shutting down.
Mm.
And what I almost felt was I had to really tense up my body and fight the urge that my body felt, which was to faint, which was to
Mm.
like, pass out. Because that's your body's way, it'll shut down the body, it'll warm up your internal organs, and then try to wake you up. But that's the difficult part, is waking up after that. And I just remember being in the bus, trying to heat up. They were giving me hot water, and when I say the shakes, like wow, I mean like it was insane. And then my vision went a bit blurry, and even getting back to the bus, I was disorientated. I completely forgot the direction back to the minibus, where they had the heating on the ready.
Yeah.
And some guy had to guide me, put towel around me, guide me. I couldn't even dry myself, man. I couldn't dry myself. It was honestly, it was insane. And then that night, I'm obviously being brave for the film crew, saying, "Nah, it's fine. You know, I've done plenty of shit like this before." That evening, I was like, "Can you die of the aftermath of hypothermia?" Checking on Google on my phone, in bed, thinking, "I hope I wake up tomorrow."
I mean, how much of that is like spontaneous? Because it's a film crew, right? So I'm expecting them to be somewhat prepared, or are they just like, "Hey, Ash, can you do this? Can you jump the freaking Yellow River?"
Yeah, not only are they like that, not only are they like that, but when I commit to doing it and they start sort of saying, "Oh, I don't actually think you should do it. I think it could be a bit dangerous." I've already committed mentally.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
I can't say I'm going to do something and then not do it, you know? And so a lot of it's my fault. But I do know, I do know that, you know, a lot of the film crews, they do have experts and professionals there, you know, but I think with me, I was the only professional. The rest were literally just camera crew. There
oh,
was no
jeez.
expert to teach me how to survive this, or
Oh no.
I
I
was
mean, you're
it.
the expert, right? So
Yeah,
they're like, we don't need an extra guy
yeah,
there.
yeah. And that's the danger is then ego slips in, right? And you're like, I'll fucking swim this. Yeah, no problem. And then you almost die.
Damn, man, damn.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. The first time you and I chatted was, I think, 4 years ago. I DM'd
Wow.
you. Actually, at first, I pitched you to become my client so I can help you build a coaching business, and you're like,
Right.
I'm good. You know, I got a bunch of other stuff to do right now, and then I saw you hanging
2020.
out. Yeah, 2020, and then
Yeah.
I saw you hanging out with my friend Fight Gecko Fabian Ene in
Yeah.
Dubai. You guys were training, and I'm like, this guy's everywhere. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that was
so
cool. Oh, I missed Dubai. Get back in the sun. And those were great lads.
I mean,
So,
you told me you're on your way to China, or you're planning to go to China.
say that again.
I remember you told me you're planning to go to China again, or you're going to be on your way soon, or something like that.
Yes, there's another project. I think this one has fallen through actually.
Hmm.
We should find out this week, but that is for like a big adventure theme event that's been sponsored by an electric car company out in Shanghai. And so they're just dabbling on what's going to be involved, and I think they might have changed the theme. And if they have, it will be rescheduled in June. So it's
Hmm.
probably looking like June. I'll be going to China again. It's on my second
Gotcha.
home. I love the place. I
I
love
was
it.
gonna say, yeah.
Yeah.
What draws you to China specifically?
Um, I think the diversity, to be honest.
Hmm.
I think the mass, you know, the magnitude of the country and just how different it is. You know, I think when people think of China, you know, not only do they think of the politics and the government, they think of these sort of mega cities, right? These super cities, multi-millions of people. But that's only really sort of central and east. But then
Hmm.
you go further west and it is wild, man.
Hmm.
Very wild. You're talking some of the biggest mountain peaks in the world. You are talking bears, wolves. You're talking you can go maybe, I don't know, a couple of days hiking without seeing a single soul. It's um
Damn.
it's very wild, it's very extreme, and it's very untouched. So I think that's probably also what draws me to China is that everyone knows of China, but no one really goes there. And if they do go there, it's normally the big cities, right?
Yeah, yeah, good point. I mean, is it because you've gone to China multiple times over the last couple of years? Has it from a Western perspective, it looks like it's getting worse and worse with the facial recognition, social credit system, and all that jazz. How do you notice that when you go there?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, especially this time round, especially even more so after COVID, you know?
Mm.
They were already very advanced. They were already sort of like looking to get rid of cash. And I remember in 2016 or 17 when I first went, the locals would laugh that I was carrying cash. Wow. Like, and then like for taxis, it's all normal for us now, but for taxis back then in 2000, well, 16 when I witnessed it, but probably 2014, maybe sooner, they would pay taxis, you know, beep, their card was in their phone already.
Mm. Damn.
Um, and so everything was contactless, you know, everything was on their phone. They had nothing, no sort of, no ID. They would even keep that on the phone.
Mm.
So that's it, you know, they lose their phone and it's all on there, but there's all ways around it now as well, isn't there? That's what I was thinking back then. You lose your phone, everything's gone, but no, it's all stored, isn't it? You can get it back.
Mm.
So they are very advanced and even more so now. It's was difficult to see in COVID because I was there, right in 2022, which was, I think, China's second or third lockdown. And of course, there were more lockdown deaths than COVID deaths.
Mm.
And it was just the amount of depression I saw out on the streets, the amount of people just slumped on the side of the road, head in hands, sort of down and out. It was difficult to see, but
Mm.
that's how harsh they go there, right? And then they
Damn.
just opened up overnight, boom, everything was gone. So I
How
think I was there, mate. I was there for over 120 days, and I
mm.
think in that time I had over 160 PCR tests.
Damn. This is like more than one per day. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
sometimes 3, maximum 4 a day, I think it was, but at least
I mean, I remember that in the beginning, on the very, very beginning, where you still had to pay to get PCR tests, like way before they were like mandatory and whatnot. And I remember it cost like, I spent like almost 1,500 euros on PCR tests in like the first 2 months. And then, living in Kyiv back in the days, I'm like, hey, I just photoshopped the last certificate. Don't, nobody gave a damn.
no,
So that saved me a bunch of money until the things became free, anyways.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, crazy stuff.
it is
So
mental, man.
yeah, have you noticed that on the countryside as well, or was it like no masks, no nothing on the countryside?
In Yeah, no, it was very much. There's this photo that went that went pretty viral across China of one of the guys wearing the big suit, that does the PCR test on horseback, and in the wild, just scenery of mountains and mountains with a local, clear local, wearing a mask out in hundreds of miles of wilderness,
Damn.
also on his horse, and the guy in this big suit is like leaning over from horse to horse, taking a PCR test. And I'm like, what? These guys are so remote, far out there, that if anything, they're going to get COVID because this guy in the big suit has come from the country on horseback. It doesn't make any sense. So that went viral. So that
uh,
showed that they were even out in the wilderness. But that aside, China, I think I always just keep going back there because it's the locals that you get to know. It's the people, and the people of the country are just absolutely amazing, so friendly, so
mm,
warm and welcoming to everything that I've done there. And they've supported me from the get go. So that's why I'm taking lots of trips there now, is because they're loving it. My
yeah,
TV shows are all across the nation. They're on the airlines. They're
I saw
calling me
that.
back out there for different events, and so the support is, and it's a good place to be as well. China, isn't it? They are very up and coming.
So I've heard. So I've heard. So it's almost like you're more popular in China than you are in the West.
I think so. I
Hmm.
think it depends. What's funny is in the West, I've been more reliant on social media. And so all of these brands and book agents, agencies, all of that, they have worked with me and they want to work with me, but it's almost a lot easier for them to work with me if I get a TV show. And it's weird because TV seems sort of dated now, right?
Yeah.
Tradition. But it still holds a lot of clout. There's a lot of kudos to it.
Yeah.
However, in China, it's the opposite. The social media following isn't that big in China because obviously, I need the team to be right in China, and I've got a strong team now, sort of doing all of the social media posts in Chinese. But I didn't have that from the beginning. But I did
Mm.
have all the TV shows, and so in the West, it's more social media
Hmm.
fronted, and in China, it's more sort of TV. And so there's
Yeah.
probably the healthy balance. But I do think now that I've got a team in China, what we're going to see is big growth in China, and we hope that the UK tries to follow, not let their British boy get too big in China without the UK,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, dude, it's been crazy. You've been at it with all these crazy adventures for what, like 15 years or something.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
in in
almost. Yeah.
in 2014 you crossed Mongolia. I think that was the year, and then
Yeah.
you've really kind of been blowing up since then. You've been on the Joe Rogan podcast, which blew you, I think, up even more.
Yeah.
When was the feeling where you said, okay, holy shit, now things are happening? Do you remember a specific point?
Yeah, there were almost levels to it. I remember when I was 19, cycling the length of Cambodia and Vietnam on ridiculous bikes. They cost $10. We had a loaf of bread. We had peanut butter. That's all we were eating. We didn't have no puncture repair kit, no pump. We were just relying on the locals. When the bikes broke, which they broke like 17 times, we would be
Oh
running up to
no.
the local community at like 2 o'clock in the morning, seeing if anyone's awake and asking if they can fix our bikes. And then we made that. We were chased by dogs. We were dodged by lorries, hit by motorbikes. It was wild, but we made it. And I think that is when I found sort of the passion for adventure. I was like, fucking hell, I love this. And then I remember saying at the end of my days, if I can have a world map and have like lines scattered across different countries where it's like hikes, kayaks, runs, cycles, and that would be awesome. But then Mongolia, some 3, 4 years later, my first world record was the catalyst where I realized, potentially this could become a career. And that's because I was heavily in the media, in the tabloids. I did my first TEDx talk and I was only 23, 24. Um, and then there was paid talks, and I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. But it was a struggle. It was a big struggle. I think that year, because you're in the very much in the money industry, and I think that year I made no more than 2 grand.
Oh.
After a world first record. So I think a lot of people think you get a record and boom, you blow up. No,
Mm.
it's a struggle. Couldn't move out from my parents. I was stuck at their place, and I couldn't even pay them rent. It was that much of a struggle. Madagascar was the second world first. I was kind of like, right, I need this to be even bigger. I need this to create more opportunities. I did that second world first. That was also big. I think we generated over 350 million, of a reach worldwide back
Nice.
then without really social media. And then again, it was still a struggle after that. And so the Yangtze is the one that I was like, right, because I couldn't afford no PR, so I was doing it all by myself with a following of, I don't know, 8,000, 10,000 followers across the board on social media. And so the Yangtze is probably the one where I started to notice that, okay, we've done it, this is it. And then the Joe Rogan sort of blew things up. I was then managed by Dwayne Johnson's agent, who also
That's right.
manages Ronda Rousey, Kevin Costner, all of these big names, which was crazy. We were in talks with the president of Nat Geo, the vice president of Discovery, things where it was that momentum building. Then, the snowball was growing bigger and bigger. And then COVID happened.
Aha.
Right at that pinnacle moment.
Mm.
And so it was like, right, how do we do this again? How do we get the ball rolling? And then we were lucky to secure, a multi-million-dollar TV deal in China. So that's the
Mm.
latest thing. And this year it will air internationally. But yeah, I tell you what, the first 5 years, mate, it was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, we always say in business and in especially with brand building, like nothing happens till everything happens. So it's not like a linear curve. It's just flat, 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 and then at some point you just fucking blow up. And
Yeah.
this is something I want. I really admired in your journey. I mean, it's one thing to suffer with a business when you're, oh, I'm posting and I'm not getting any clients. It's a whole other thing when you're walking along the length of the Yangtze River, you get bitten by all kinds of animals and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you've
Yeah.
literally physically suffered.
Yeah.
Um, and that's crazy. So in this regard, I'm super happy for you, man. And that's also why I said, like, hey, um, that's also why I wanted to ask you to get on my podcast, because I'm like, you're gonna be like soon. You're gonna be way too big to go on a podcast like mine. So I'm like, okay, let's see if we can get
No,
Ash now.
I appreciate that, brother. No,
Hell yeah.
we're both going, both moving on to big things.
Yeah, I mean, so you've been in the jungles in Madagascar. You've gone through the Gobi Desert and all that jazz. Have you ever thought of doing kind of Antarctica, the snow, the ultra cold places? Is that still on your list, or what entices you?
Yes. The only thing with sort of the North and South poles is, for me, it's mainly been about TV, breaking into TV.
Mhm.
And I think if I was to do one of the poles, it would be very much about one man and his emotional state. and there's only so many people that want to watch that. Whereas if I was going through the jungle or over the mountains, coming across communities, and now it's not a story about one man and his sort of mission, but it's about the wildlife and the people encountered along the way, they're the ones that can create the story and sort of sell the
Mm.
show, if you like.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I've never really done a polar expedition is because there wouldn't be a great deal to see because I wouldn't be encountering a lot. It would be a great personal mission, a great physical and mental test.
Yeah.
But then I do think it would be a more difficult show to sell
Yeah, makes
for
sense.
TV because you've either got to be a really big sort of household name, like if David Beckham decided to do that, TV would
Yeah.
be over it. But if you're not David Beckham, or like a big household name like that, you've got to add various different strings to the bow,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Does it
But
does, yeah.
but who knows? As things develop and expand, people might sort of want to see more of the physical, the mental challenges, and want me to be dropped in the Taklamakan Desert in the west of China, full of sand dunes, or the South Pole, and just make my way out.
Ah,
Um,
damn, that would be
if
sick.
that, yeah, and if that happens, I'm all up for it because I've faced extreme cold temperatures before at
Yeah.
very high altitude. Um, I think in China it was minus 20, minus 25, and I was at over 5,000 meters altitude, which is similar altitude to Everest Base Camp. And like ten members were evacuated, due to altitude sickness, but also fear of wildlife and the temperature. They would just join me and they were hit, Max, by the harsh reality of this isn't all what it's cracked up to be. His photos on
Mm.
Instagram look very, very beautiful, very pleasant, but then they're hit by that shock of capture of this is hard and I want out, and they bounce. Yeah,
Shit.
which is always demoralizing because I'm excited. I'm like, oh yes, I've got people joining me for like 2 3 weeks. And the worst was a UK photographer who flew out. My British photographer came to join me. He planned to join me for 3 weeks. He lasted 6 hours on day number one. Took a flight right back to Britain.
You must be getting like tons of DMs from like dudes. They're like, "Hey man, I'll join you the next time. Let's go."
Yeah.
Did you ever have someone serious that said like, "Hey, can I join?"
Um. Yeah. Yeah. No, I did, and I think it was the Yangtze where I did start to open it up. I remember this Mexican guy who was into meditation and pushing himself and like stoicism and the rules of the Japanese samurai. That they were my first thoughts of him. I was like, this guy he seems pretty legit. And he joined me. Yeah, he came and joined me. It was the middle section because I had to shut down the whole expedition. Well, not the but people from joining me because people were just being evacuated left and right. So when it was safe to do so, I opened it up, and he joined me from Mexico, and I had other people join. There was Chinese members of public, celebrities.
No way.
Um, but yeah, I've had many people saying, like with the Yangtze or with the Congo, like, fuck yeah, if you do it, I'll do it with you. And I think, after Mongolia, Madagascar, when people send me that stuff, I probably would have been like, yeah, let's do it. But I've realized, and you would have experienced the same, but you almost don't realize how far you've come until you see people try to keep up. Right? You almost don't understand your own personal growth sometimes. You take it for
Damn.
granted. You forget all of the hurdles and struggles you've overcome because you're here, and then you're like, yeah, yeah, come and join me. And then people will go from there to try to join you, and then that's it. They're almost dying. And it's only on the Yangtze that I realized I need to stop being irresponsible because that's what it was. It wasn't. It was immaturity and irresponsible on my behalf to say like, yeah, you can,
Yeah.
it would be like a Formula One driver just letting anyone try to race against them and feel that they stand a good chance. It's like, no, you're
Yeah.
forgetting you're well trained and well versed in what you do. And so yeah, I would love to open up the expedition in the future, but I would probably keep it either capped or the easiest section where it's like, okay, now it is just walking. It's not surviving.
That is a hell of a quote that you said. It's like you don't know how far you've come till you witness other people trying to keep up with you.
Yeah,
That
right.
hit deep, man.
You know that.
I mean, you're right, because you strike me as someone who pushes himself obviously to the limit. So I noticed that a couple times. I'm very harsh with myself. Like when I'm tired or sick, I'm like, I don't care. It's leg day today. You go train your legs.
Yeah.
So you have a very good point. We don't even notice how far we've come because we're so busy just pushing ourselves. Damn. One thing that struck me is like, don't you have sponsors or sort of brands that say, hey, can you wear our gear? Can you wear our stuff? We'll represent you and we'll give you a bunch of money.
Yes, yeah, you do. But what's hilarious with with the records is because they all three have been deemed impossible before I've actually done them.
Hmm.
And I don't mean just critics, members of public. I mean athletes, explorers, professionals that work within big brands like the North Face or Columbia, saying, "I don't think we should sponsor him because it's just not possible. These people have attempted it before. They're this, they're that. They couldn't do it."
Hmm.
Um, and then I think it's just become a bit of a too much of a high risk for these brands to sponsor a guy who then died out on the Yangtze River or died in the Gobi Desert.
Ah,
They want no association, and then once you finish, they want all of the association.
damn.
It's too late. And so you find that it is getting easier, and we're starting to liaise with much sort of bigger brands now that are willing to take a risk. But at the very beginning stages, yeah, I remember even Kailas. Kailas were the first sponsor to take the risk. They are the biggest outdoor brand across China. Um, and they didn't want to associate with the expedition until like the halfway point. And and me and my team were very strict, saying no, you're either in it from the get go or you're not in it at all.
Hmm.
And then they went overboard and got so involved that we ended up creating a whole co-branded clothing range.
No
In
shit.
over 300 stores across China, AD by Kailas. And that was really good for them and for me. And they were the first to take the risk, and then other brands saw this, and then other brands started to step up. So it depends on like the first brand to take the risk. Others will start following suit because they're like, oh, okay, we're not on our own. If he dies,
Yeah.
it won't just be us; it'll be this brand and that brand that also.
Yeah. Okay, well that kind of makes sense. Although it's kind of sad when you think about it, the record is too epic for people to want to be able to sponsor you. Like if you had chosen something
Oh yeah,
smaller, it's just kind of sucks. But at least
it's a
now they
shame.
know you.
Yeah, you're right. If I was to run the length of the UK, for example, running, you're on a road, there's safety, there's support, there's no survival element, and it's the UK.
Yeah.
All the sponsors in the world would probably want to be a part of that.
Right. So
It's a quick zero risk win for them, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, when it comes to gear and food, water, etc. When you were crossing Mongolia, but even when you did the Madagascar thing, like you're in your hotel room, you're about to pack your gear. What goes in there? What are like the essentials? Because I don't know. I've never done a trip like that. What do
Yeah.
you say is like a must to have?
So the must to have specifically for Madagascar was a machete
Hmm.
for sort of the hunting, the gathering, the hacking through the jungle that I'd be attempting. Um, the water to go filtration bottle, which is a built-in filter, and you can top up from pretty much any water source other than salt water, and
Hmm.
it gets rid of 99.9% of all bacteria and contaminants. So you've got access to fresh drinking water, and then the rest would be obviously the sleeping equipment, from the tent, the sleeping bag, sleeping mat, cooking equipment, ration packs. So I take ration packs with me for a certain amount. For Mongolia, I took like 5.5 weeks worth on the trailer. But for Madagascar, I took enough so that if I didn't come across locals, I've got some food with me to eat that day. Or if there's no jungle where I can't do any hunting and gathering, I've got food. What else was there? And then clothing for the cold climate when I'm in the mountains, and
Yeah.
then hot climate when I'm in the desert. Electronics, power banks, solar panels, camera kit, and a tracking device, which sort of tracks me every 5 minutes, 24/7 for the duration of the trip. And that's especially for the Yangtze, because Guinness Book of Records wanted to make sure I didn't jump on the back end of a bicycle.
Ah,
So it took them like 2, 3 months to verify because they they had to go through every yellow dot for
yeah.
352 days, and obviously it pings off every 5 minutes. So it took them a while.
Did you keep track of like the day when when you're going along the Yangtze? It's like, oh, today is freaking Christmas or something like that, or does it stop
Yeah,
mattering?
no, I do keep track of not the days like today is Monday, but I keep track in terms of milestones and goals, almost like checkpoints that I've got.
Hmm.
Like, so for example, if it's Christmas, I'll be like, oh, it'd be great if, Christmas is a month away. It would be great if I can arrive in this city or that community on Christmas Eve, for example. And then I'll have that, little goal in mind. But then if I'm in the complete wilderness, it doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I thought. Yeah,
yeah, but yeah, there will always be sort of checkpoints and milestones that I'll try to get there for this occasion.
yeah, I hear you. Do you have a satellite phone with you or something where you can always call someone just in case?
No, not in Mongolia and not in Madagascar, but I did in on the Yangtze trip.
So how
Um,
come you didn't have one in Mongolia and Madagascar?
I just couldn't afford it for
Oh,
those yeah, the budget was like really so to put it into context, I was living in Thailand for 2 years as a scuba diving instructor and a Muay Thai fighter. I was making £300 a month, maybe. And then when I decided to do Mongolia, I sold my diving kit. I quit my job like a couple of months before I left, and I arrived back to the UK with about £200 to my name. That's it. Couldn't afford no gym membership. My uncle dropped me off a tractor tire, a sledgehammer, and I used my parents' back garden to train in. And this is for a world first. So all of these people doing big things, which is epic, with all the right facilities. I like to show people who don't really have the facilities that there's always a way to make it happen, even if you've got nothing. You make do with what you've got and find a way to go after it, no matter what. And that's what I was doing. No matter the weather, I was outside in the snow, beating the tractor tire, flipping it. I just managed to get enough funds to give Mongolia the green light. And after the flight, I think couple of grand in
damn.
total after the electronics, after the flight out there. And so I just couldn't afford, the data plan and
Yeah.
satellite phones. But I just had a tracking device only, which you could text 160 characters only. So that was enough to be like, help me.
You can like tweet.
Yeah, you can tweet. Yeah, you could actually.
I mean, so you did all that on a shoestring budget. You mentioned the bicycles and all
Yeah.
that jazz, and now you're probably making more money than you did before. How do these sort of expeditions change? What can you do? You afford better gear? What do you invest in that helps you there?
Yeah, so now it's pretty plain sailing in the way that when I'm planning an expedition, I can get a lot of the stuff for free. Um,
Hmm, sick.
so even if there is the big hefty budget there, I can get it for free. But what the beauty is, especially with this latest one, with the China show, is with TV, you don't need stuff for free. And so that saves the hassle of, oh, I promise these deliverables, you'll get this post, you'll have this mention, we'll mention you in this interview because the budget's there with TV, big hefty budget, and so they get what you want them to get. You say I need this, 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 and that. And it could be the best kit out there, and they'll get it because
Sick.
money isn't an object. So it's nice to have that when you've not had that for the first two big expeditions.
Yeah.
Uh, the Yangtze was a lot easier well, still difficult because of the magnitude and the sensitivity. Maybe one of the most difficult places logistically to plan an expedition. I had 14 stamped and signed government documents, carrying actual satellite phones that are illegal in China, but mine were
Oh,
government approved. I was almost deported by the Tibetan authorities. I was taken in by the police 5 different times, interrogated, but I just had heavy backing. They could not deport me. They could not get rid of me. And so, yeah, that was important. Otherwise, I would have been sent back to the UK on day number 5, I think it was, when the
Damn.
first sort of threat of being deported came my way. Um, and so, the sponsors were there, the team were there, the production were there. We were filming for Nat Geo. There was a much larger presence, and we reached over 1.1 billion people worldwide with
Damn.
promotion, which was significant growth to that of Mongolia or Madagascar. And so now it's easier, but the funds increase. The funds are always increasing, because
That's
now it's
good.
not just about you. Now you want your content creator there. Now, say if a production team doesn't join, you want to cover the costs to have someone or a few people there filming. So it's always increasing.
Mm.
But it definitely gets easier.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, when you so y- you're walking around alongst the length of the Yangtze River. You've been in nature for almost a year, I think it was, right?
Yeah, with the Yangtze it was, yeah.
And
Assistance as well with that, but especially the first 6 months was pretty wild.
yeah, so you get out of the wilderness, you go into the first relatively civilized city.
Yeah.
What's walking me through it? What's kind of like the first thing you do? What is the first thing you're craving? What is the first thing you really got to do
It's a very good question, actually. I don't get asked that, but
there?
I think I was smiling because there's an instant memory that pops out. And I think I was 4 to 5 months deep into the Yangtze trip. 10 of the 16 different people that tried to join me at different times, whether that's guide or film crew, were evacuated. I was followed by a pack of wolves for a number of days. I was desperately trying to avoid the bears because it was hunting season. Um, I was hit by snow blizzards. I was attacked by Tibetan mastiffs. I was taken in by the authorities and threatened 5 different occasions. There were landslides, there were floodings, which sent me back onto the mountain peaks into the blizzards, to navigate around. And then I had most of my British and Chinese team on the satellite phone telling me to abort the expedition and try again next year because now it's getting too dangerous. You've left it 2.5 months too long, and you're slipping into winter, which is usually -40. So there was all of this hecticness, this big shit show going down. But with that, I didn't need anyone's sort of validation, if you like. With Mongolia and Madagascar, maybe I wasn't as experienced, so I needed people to tell me if it's too reckless or not. But with the Yangtze, I knew myself, I knew my capabilities, and I told them, no, I'm going to crack on. It's taken 2 years to plan. I'm already a number of months in deep, and I will make sure everyone makes it. I'll make sure any future evacuations, everyone survives, and I will get off the mountains before the true depth of winter. And I did. And the first place I rocked up to was a small city, beautiful place. It's almost traditional China, called Lijiang in Yunnan province. And I walked there and I arrived early in the morning, big smile on my face. And I'm all blue because Kailas, they just kitted me out with all blue kit. So blue rucksack, blue jacket, blue woolly hat, blue shoes, like dark grey trousers actually. And I'm walking in, red face because I'm all windswept and sunburned, big beard, which is starting to weirdly turn ginger. Hair sticking up as well. And these people are looking at me and I'm just smiling. I'm like, hiking through, fucking yeah, fucking city, no bears, no wolves. I don't need to watch my back. I don't need to set up fires. And the first place I went was Starbucks. I walked into Starbucks. Christmas music was playing. Ah, it was warm. There was shelter. It didn't matter if it was raining. Everyone was just pain free. There was no one in pain, no one scared, no one needed to be evacuated. I was just happy to be there. My senses were still wild, so
Yeah.
any big noises around me, I'd still be like, whoa, still be a little bit on edge. Like, oof, that noise was too loud. Or a bang behind. I'm like checking to make sure there's no bears. No, because you break into that wild side where you do have to use all of your senses, and because of that, your senses are 100%. So even a small clap, you're like, fuck, what was that?
Hmm.
But I just remember being there. I ordered a big fat Christmas latte and a huge muffin. And I just went upstairs, put my big rucksack down, which was about 35 kilograms heavy. And I was just smiling, drinking my latte, eating my muffin, thinking, wow, how do we complain with all of these
Mm.
luxuries and like conveniences. No one's at the threat of being eaten alive. No
Man.
one's thinking, where am I going to sleep tonight? No one's thinking, am I even going to eat today? And I'm just like, wow, we've got everything. And that I think, and I've got this very big love for Starbucks ever since. So I'm all about Starbucks, and people are like, it's well scruffy. I'm like, no, but in China, it's a luxury. Not because obviously they've got loads of money in China, but Starbucks over there is it's kind of like every Starbucks is Starbucks reserves, very clean, very tidy. You get proper, like this mug is a Starbucks reserves mug,
Dude, they
proper
should
reserves.
sponsor you, man. You should.
They should. They should. And so that is one of my greatest experiences of making it back into civilization and feeling good about it because there's safety.
I mean, how must that muffin have tasted all that sugar? I mean, you probably weren't used to sugary foods then.
No, I was not at all. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Because even the guides that I had with me, they would be excited about their breakfast, their Tibetan breakfast called samba. And I think the best way to explain it is like mixing plain flour with water,
Oh, Jesus.
turning it up into a bit of a dough ball and eating it. And they're like, I'm just like, fucking hell. It's like something.
I
So
mean,
muffin was great.
yeah, like I already noticed it when I don't eat sugar for a week because I'm on a diet, and then I hit it, and I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah,
it's a
right.
drug.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
damn. All right, that's epic. And then how long does it usually take you for the call of the wild to kind of you get jingly, you want to get back out?
Yeah, another good one. I would say as long as I keep busy, it doesn't really hit me. It hits me if
Hmm.
I'm either getting sick of being in a city or if I'm getting bored. And it's funny because I only ever get bored now because the team's expanded. So by the team expanding, they're taking weight off my shoulders. Whereas that
Hmm.
weight used to keep me productive, used to keep me
Hmm.
busy.
Hmm.
I liked it, but now they're doing it and they do it better. Um,
Yeah.
and so sometimes I'm like, I want to go out into the wild. But then I think maybe a year before I'm kind of like, I need a mission. I need to plan a mission again. And not just for my own psyche, but for business as well. There's only so much I can talk about Mongolia, Madagascar, the Yangtze, and the Great Wall, even though the Great Wall was recent, before I start thinking I want new experiences, more stories. Like yourself, like everyone sort of climbing up that ladder in their career, going
Yeah.
one step at a time. You need to keep expanding your knowledge, right? Keep developing, keep
It
growing the contacts, keep, expanding the net worth and developing the businesses and so that's what it is. It's 50% adventure, but it's also 50% business.
Mhm. Hey, we interrupt this episode for a word of our sponsor, which is nobody. You're watching this. Thank you for existing, at least. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate the hell out of you. I don't need any sponsors, but what I do ask you for is one thing, and that is that you rate this episode 5 stars, whether that is on YouTube, give it a likes up, or whether that's on Spotify or iTunes. There's probably some sort of rating function. Please do use that because it allows us to rank higher and therefore reach more people, and it allows me to bring on more and more awesome epic guests for you. So with that being said, I appreciate the hell out of you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, for being on this wonderful journey here with you. And without any further ado, let's crack right back into it. I hear you. It's strange when, especially in the business sense, that's at least one thing I can resonate with, is like you build something, you launched a program or whatever,
Yeah,
and then you're like the day of the launch, you're like, all right, what's next? And you worked on that for like 3 4 5 years, and you're already like, you can't stop. It's almost like an
yeah,
addiction, but it's luck because we're lucky because at least it's a productive addiction, right? Like you're
exactly.
inspiring people, you're building your brand, you mentioned you have a team, so you're building a roof over the head of your team, right? Because those folks getting paid as well. So
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
best addiction to have, I would almost argue.
It is. It's one of those. It's a good addiction, but it can be cursed. It depends on your mentality, right? It depends on your mindset. Sometimes when walking across Mongolia, I would see the lives of the locals, and I'm like, they are living in a brutal, brutal environment. But at the same time, they've got so much freedom. They just jump on a
Mm.
horseback ride for miles upon miles just to see their neighbor. and just to talk, just to check in, just to maybe trade some food, some of this,
Mm,
some of that. They're not being checked in on. They're not linked to the government really in any way. They're just nomads in their white felt tents. They move with the seasons, and they're living a life of almost true freedom. But at the same time, if you know what goes on outside of that country, and if you're part of the younger generation of the nomads who sees that they can make 5 times the amount of money from being inside in a desk job, 9 to 5, then they'd love it if they can go to university, get an education, go to the city, make 5 times the amount of money, give 1/5 or 2/5 back to their family. Then there's that addiction as well. But then also in the city, it can be too chaotic, and then it causes more stress, and then you're focused on too many things at the same time, and sometimes you can almost implode, right? And there's that depression. Um, and so it's almost 3 different stages, right? There's also almost that nomadic way of being a free spirit, to then, oh, but I could be a semi-free spirit and earn 5 times the amount and do my
mm,
family proud and help them out. And then there's like maybe overboard where it's too much. And if you're not that mentality that you can handle it, it's like a ticking time bomb, right? Because I feel that now we just in this civilization, this new generation, we're almost juggling too much. Our calendar's always full. There's no time to connect. There's no time to sit down and have a chat. Like for you and me, this is middle of the day on a
yeah.
on a Thursday morning. Whereas
It's
we've
rare.
created that yeah, and we've created that for ourselves. Whereas I do also get that mentality if you are doing something you don't like doing, but it pays well, and you have to because you
Yeah.
don't the get out clause where you can survive 2 months to find another job because you're living paycheck to paycheck. It's
Mm,
yeah, it's but then you need to keep busy. You need to keep busy. There was something a lady talking about like therapy, saying lots of people say it's a good thing, and I'm very balanced about it. But her take was very interesting, saying if you sit down and you've got all the time in the world to think about your past and think about your current problems, and then if you go one step further and you sit down for hours and talk about your current situation and your problems and trying to get to the root, all as you're doing is talking about issues, problems, and it's almost if you're busy, you're not able to address those issues and problems because you're too busy creating sort of a living, creating a life. And it's that healthy balance, isn't it? It's kind of like Tyson Fury, how he slipped into depression because he wasn't doing anything. And the minute he was like, "Oh, I want to be the world champion fighter again. I want to beat Deontay Wilder and get back into training." He started
mm,
training, and he wasn't sitting down thinking about his life and, oh, I'm world champion but still no one wants to sponsor me.
yeah.
I've got it all, I've got all the money, I've got wife, family, kids, but I'm still not happy. What's wrong with me? And then you speak to
Mhm.
therapy. What's wrong with me? Tell me what's wrong. Sometimes it's like there's nothing wrong, you just need to be busy, stay
Mhm.
productive,
Mhm.
embrace it, go hard at it, create goals, exercise, eat healthy, and connect. Don't forget to connect with family, with friends, connect with nature. Sometimes the best thing is to just go out into the wilderness, go for a day hike, right? And you come back like, oh wow. So yeah, I went on a run then, didn't I?
All good, man. I mean, I've seen this too. It's like people rather suffer silently for 5 to 10 years than just spending a freaking afternoon in introspection, in quiet, without distractions, without the radio playing, without scrolling through them, just to figure out what is it that you want out of life. How do
Yeah,
you get there? And then the other thing you said that I found really interesting, because this is something I noticed recently, is like there you should always have a dragon to slay, so to speak, like a next challenge, the next thing, even if it's just a physical challenge of going to the gym. And if you don't have that, you think that it's good, like, oh cool, I have no problems, life is blissful, but in reality that's what can really fuck you up. And I've had a client of mine, he's a fitness coach, and he started making 10K a month, 15K a month or something like that, and then he quit his job. And that was kind of our goal. We've been working very closely with him. It's like, let's keep being consistent so you can quit your job. And then he quit his job, and that's where he started feeling really down, because the slayed to be slayed dragon was always his job, to get rid of it.
yeah,
And now he did it, and he's like, okay, what now? Like, there's no more dragon to slay. So you always kind of need to have a north star that you're
Yeah.
battling towards.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will take something from what you just said then about he achieved his goal. He's earning 10 plus thousand a month, quit his job, still got decent income coming in, of course, but now it's like, well, that's happening. That's happening, but
Yeah.
I've got more time on my plate. What do I do with this time? And if you
Yeah.
don't do something with the time, you get restless, right? And you start like thinking a little bit deeper, and it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's
And that it can fuck you up. Um,
yeah.
one thing I've always been wondering, so it's like when you're transitioning now from the city life, you're going out there on an adventure. Do you have a period of time where you're missing the phone, the social media, the connectivity, the freaking cheap dopamine that you probably undoubtedly are going to be exposed to either way? And vice versa, when you come back, does it freak you out, sensory overload kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. I think when I'm out there, there's the thing I miss the most is conversation, banter,
Hmm.
connection. There were many times in Mongolia where like I felt lonely. Like
Uh,
lonely. There's feeling lonely, like not seeing anyone in the day, but then there's being out there for 78 days and not being able to have a conversation because obviously the language barrier, and sometimes going 8 days without seeing a single human. And so there's that where when you're thirsty and when you're hungry, you're taking 800 calories a day for like a week straight at this point. You're pulling 18 stone, 260 pounds in a trailer, doing a marathon a day every day. That's a lot of walking, right? That's a lot of time to yourself. And it gets to a point where you forget the pain of the hunger. You're not really asked about the marathon. You're just you break into a zone and then you realize this big void, and it is the connection. It's like, oh, I just wish I could stop, put the kettle on, and have a chat with someone,
hmm.
laugh, have banter. So I miss that a lot. Um, and I guess when you don't have that human connection, social media is good for that, right? Because that's probably the second stage is you're able to still chat, still communicate, still maybe make phone calls, still see videos that make you laugh. So you get that sort of dopamine hit. But again, when you have no signal, it's you don't get that. And then when you're back in civilization, yeah, sometimes it can be a little bit overload. I remember on completion of the Yangtze, I think I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning the day that I finished. I had to cancel my own celebration party because the media interviews were coming in left, right from all over the world on different zones as well.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of like, being very demanded upon, emails coming through my team saying we've got that lined up for 5 minutes. And then, members coming in saying we've got to cut this interview now. We've got this one who's an even bigger one in like a couple of minutes time. And it's like, wow. And so that was a lot. And then you get back home and there's more celebrations and there's on the couch, Good Morning Britain or the One Show, and it's very exciting because that's the growth, that's the business. You're expanding, you're creating that awareness about the expedition, about your own personal brand and what you do, which brings in more opportunities. But there are some days where you're like, put me back in the desert just for 24 hours, you know, where you really do start missing just being left alone. But but I think that's why it's important for it to happen in stages. I think after Mongolia, I really got to feel what it was like to not be busy after an expedition, and I didn't like that. The interviews happened and they were done within a week or two, and then I was back to a normal routine at my parents, filling the dishwasher, being humbled, being grounded, being like, fucking hell, this is some good humbling right now after what I've just achieved. And I liked it, but I vowed to myself next time I will come back with something to chew on, something to get after, something to be busy with. And I did after Madagascar. I then experienced that busyness, and then the Yangtze took it to that whole new level. But I was all about it because I remembered what it was like after finishing Mongolia and there being nothing, no noise, no demands, no one reaching out, no one interested, no growth, and
Damn.
thinking, yes, I'm being bombarded with interviews, but the flip side of this is not being contacted at all, which I've experienced.
Hmm.
It's interesting, yeah. So I think that's why there's levels, and I think there's some truth, isn't there, to when people get so big so fast at such a young age, and then you see all of these mental breakdowns that they have.
Yeah,
But
it
then you
fucks
see
you.
people who sort of don't get big fast. It's a gradual process, and they really sort of handle themselves better because it happened at the right time for them.
Yeah, yeah. You see that a lot.
Mm,
That I see it in online marketing quite a lot. That there's people they're at the right time at the right spot. They have the right sort of sexy offer. You know, for example, right now, if you made an AI agency, everybody's all about the AI, right? So
yeah,
you get paid disproportionately of the effort that you put in simply because it's such a sexy offer that sells itself.
yeah,
And and then inevitably it's going to fall apart because if you don't have that very steady foundation to build the house upon, it's going to fall. And the more weight you put on top, the more you make, it's going to implode. Maybe you cannot deliver to all your clients, and maybe your team's going to fall apart. Maybe you just lose your shit because of ego, and
yeah,
then it can really mess you up when it happens too fast. And I noticed that myself. My first business,
yeah.
we started making 500K a month. Everything was crushing, and then it started crumbling, and it
Right.
fucked me for like 2 years. And I'm happy, and I had like all excuses in the world to stop, to get bitter, to blame everyone else. But I'm kind of happy that I went down the shitty route that forced me to be humble. Like you said, you know, you're loading the dishwasher. Like, hey, you're just a humble motherfucker.
Yeah,
That was really helpful. And now I'm at a stage where I'm just much stronger.
yeah,
I can endure hardship much
yeah,
easier.
yeah. And then you're more risk adverse and savvy when it comes to decisions, right? Because
Yeah.
you know what it's like to be in a bad position. You know what it's like to have it all and then lose it all. And you do everything more
Yeah.
calculated, meticulous planning is being done to make sure that doesn't happen again, right? So you need to
Yeah.
experience that, I think, to actually grow and do better next time around.
And it's the best thing in the world if you look back at it. Like I wouldn't want to do anything else. I'm happy that I went through the shit. It sucks when you go through it, but
Yes.
afterwards you're kind of
Yeah,
happy. Yeah.
yeah, but you remember it, and that is
Mhm.
a life experience you never want to go through ever again. But you glad you did go through because you learn a lot from it. It's that
Yeah.
saying, isn't it? What matters more than the mistakes you make is what you're able to learn from them. It's so true.
Exactly. Do you have a mentor or someone that you can talk about shit like that? I mean, you're sometimes the only person who ever did it, so you're quite out there in the top 1% in your field. Do you have guys that you look up to that you talk to?
Um, n- yes and no. I say no because no, there's no mentor and there's no one that I speak to who has done this before. But I say yes because I do have sort of like a logistics team
Yeah.
who are able to find. So, for example, China, my production team would try to gain local knowledge of like a province or a village that I was going to be walking through to find out more information about that place during that season
Ah, sick.
with the weather and with the so I'm given a heads up. But you know, a huge sort of role model, if you like, would be my dad. And my dad does he doesn't do any of this stuff. He doesn't do the adventure scene, you know, whatsoever. But he is very he is always optimistic. He's
Hmm.
always positive. Like if there's bad news or if there's rejection, I've faced well over 2,000 rejections easily right now. And all the time I'm like down and out and it gets to me. Not as much now because I've adopted his mindset, but at the beginning he was like, "Oh yeah, that's fine, meant to be. Something big is coming." I'm just like, "How are you not bothered by that? That's a big upset. That's a big rejection. How are you not phased a little bit?" It's like it's life. It just happens. It is what it is. Can't do anything about it. So we'll just move forward and get bigger, better deals next time round. And at the beginning, I was just like, "It doesn't work like that." But it does work like that if you keep going. If you
Yeah.
don't keep going, it doesn't work like that. And he's just so upbeat, never raises his voice even as a youngster. You know, my mum as well, but my mum's more the sort of realist. You know, if I sign with an agent, she's like, "Oh, you know, these are handling big sharks. They could be." I'm like, yeah, but we don't want to think that from the beginning. Let's like at least try it. My
Yeah.
dad's more like, wow, that's going to be massive. They're going to be able to get this deal because they know that brand, and bang, bang, bang. And it's like full of energy. And, yeah, it's a good, healthy balance between the two. So when I'm out there on an expedition, and I will speak to him, if there's signal on the Yangtze, and I'll speak to him, and he'll like be updating me with different things that's happening, and I'll be telling him. And always before the end of the call, he'll be like, oh, this is amazing. You're doing big things, and it's just to hear that, it does boost your morale. And I guess I'm lucky to have parents like that who are very driven themselves, who mindset is very healthy, who they always set goals for themselves. And,
Oh,
and they
nice.
came through hardship as well. They lived in a dodgy area above a
Mhm.
fish and chip shop.
Mhm.
Um, and then they, now my dad then started on real estate and being a mortgage consultant. So I've been able to watch him grow and develop because they're very young parents. They had me when my mum was 19.
Mm.
And so yeah, so I would say that has probably affected my mindset a lot. That I don't really need to look for outside influence or role models because it's all here, isn't it? It's within us all. If we develop our mind, and of course, I had to develop my mind, and a lot of it came through adversity. A lot of it came through just pushing myself, getting out there, like learning, because I'm a very kinesthetic learner, learning from
Mm.
hands-on practical experience, but then learning from other people's mindsets, who I spend the majority of time with. And that's true, isn't it? It's so true. If it's not your parents, find a good group of friends,
Yep.
find some good connections who are solid, who are positive, who don't take things too seriously, rejection. You take it on the
Yeah.
chin, get up again. Tomorrow's another day.
You need these kind of people that have been there, that have done that. It's so it can, because you mentioned it's a very lonely experience a lot of times what you're doing. If you're lonely, it can really fuck you up. Also, when you're in entrepreneurship with the business side of things, like you said, you have a team now. Like when you are on your own, it can really fucking suck when you got nobody to talk to, and it's really really key. So you mentioned a team. What are they doing? What are kind of like the responsibilities? Because I'm pretty sure someone might be thinking, okay, I'm Ash Dykes, I'm just walking from A to B, but I'm sure there's like a huge team behind all kinds of different tasks there.
Yeah, yeah. And it's always expanding. And the team at the beginning, I would say, wasn't necessary. Not the budget's more necessary than the team at the beginning because of the PR work. What I found is with Mongolia is I didn't necessarily need agents. I needed a PR to help build my name, to help, get my expedition on TV shows, to help on radio shows, in the paper, in magazines. And I didn't have that because I couldn't afford it. But
Hmm.
that's proof to show that you don't need it. So you don't need a team, you don't need PR. There's always a way, and it's just by you going after it regardless. However, as things started to grow, I've gone through now maybe 7 or 8 different management teams. And what these management teams do is they represent you. And so for example, Kruger Cow is my current management team. They represent Stephen Bartlett, Bear Grylls, lots of other big names in the international sphere, if you like. And they take care of brands, take care of book deals, they take care of TV, speaking engagements, appearances, and all round sort of endorsements. And so by having a team, it's not just you putting a PDF together and trying to reach out solely to these different brands. It's now coming from a team which is more credible, who have the contacts already built. There's a number of them, maybe 20, 30, 40 within the office, working one on social media, one on TV, one on the book deal. So it's a lot more concentrated. However,
Yeah.
these teams don't. So I actually contacted Crew Count going back 4 years ago and never even heard a reply. But now, as things have built bigger, they reached out and they wanted to manage and represent me, So, and I was at the point where I was speaking to lots of various agencies, and so it was nice to have options from going back 4 years ago, where I was reaching out to everyone. No one wanted anything to do with me,
Yeah.
and
Did you
so
tell
that,
them that you like, hey guys, like I reached out
yeah,
to you?
yeah.
Yeah.
They they didn't need to apologize, but they said, "Oh yeah, we know we're in a much better place right now." I don't know who was running the office then.
That's funny, man.
Yeah, they just blamed each other.
I mean, you said you've had 8 different ones.
Yes.
But had the other 7 just didn't perform enough, or what happened there?
Yeah, just didn't perform enough. False promises,
Hmm.
under delivering. Some turned out to be wacky. Some turned out to not really be a legit agency, just in it for fast cash and bounce. It's very hard to find the right agency. And I may not have found them in Kruger Cow. I hope I have, but it's only been 7 months, so time will tell. Um, Brad Slater, maybe the biggest agent, one of the biggest agents in the world, who was representing me. He's from WME in Los Angeles, manages, as I mentioned, The Rock, all of these big names. And what I found with him is, whilst he was great and we really connected, he's securing and negotiating multi-million-dollar deals. With The Rock, what, 50 million to 100 million per show, probably something ridiculous. And so with me talking about a 5 million documentary show, it's probably like, oh, so much work when I could just like find a Rock deal for 10 times that amount. So you need to choose your pond or choose your ocean, because there's a lot of big fish that these agents manage. And I've got to be wary again with Kruger Town, because Stephen Bartlett is a very big player. Bear Grylls is a big international player. They have other very big names, and it's a case of, it depends how much time and effort they put on my name. They need to see this as prospect, and we will grow, and this is the beginning stage, because there's plenty of other big things to come. And so that's kind of what you're banking on, is that these see big potential and work hard now to enjoy the fruits of their labor later.
Yeah, yeah. Did they ever try to like get you together with Bear Grylls, where they're like, "Hey, you guys should hang out," or something like that? You guys are the same, or like you're both regular white dudes trying to do the extreme stuff.
Yeah, no, they haven't. Which is a good thing. I think they don't want to, because he's such a big international name. I think what they want to be careful of is that I'm not in his shadow, and I'm not cast
Mm.
as the next Bear Grylls, if you like.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which I have spoke to them about that, and being like, look, I'm my own individual. I know Bear's the only sort of big name doing this, but I don't want to be in anyone's sort of shadow, because what I've achieved is huge. It's just,
Yeah.
it isn't as big as obviously his name. And so yeah, they're aware. If something happens in the future, then so be it. We can discuss it for sure. But right now, I think I need to carve my own path.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Be wary of that, haven't you?
No, it makes
Right.
sense now. On second thought, it totally makes sense.
What about you? Tell me a bit more about your background.
So, dude, I started in well, I come from the Austrian Alps,
Yeah.
5,000 people cow town, not much really going on there, and I always used to be really socially awkward and kind of shy.
Okay.
And then I moved to Vienna to study musicology, Latin, English. First musicology, then Latin and English,
Yeah.
and that really confronted me with my inability of being social and talking to people.
Mm.
So that really sucked. And then I read books about like how to talk to girls and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
I literally just started writing about it. Like back then there was like forums, like that was way before Facebook and all that stuff really took off. So I just wrote in forums, and then people reached out to me. That I remember I got a personal message on a forum once, like, do you coach? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, how much? 150 euros a day. Okay, cool. Can I meet you? And then like that, I got my first coaching client. I would just walk up and down the streets of Vienna with this guy, and sending him into comfort zone challenges, helping him talk to girls and stuff like that. And then I'm like, I got $150. Like I could have done this for free. It was, oh, maybe I can do some. And then I started. I remember I rented a hotel seminar room for like 70 euros for an afternoon, and I wrote into the forum like, hey, I'll do a seminar about social confidence, and it's for free. You guys can come in. And 3 guys showed up. And I'm like, holy shit, I got 3 guys I can teach there,
Yeah, yeah.
And then I told him, hey, I'll do it again 2 weeks from now. Just bring a friend. So next time 10 people showed up. So I did it again. 30 people showed up. I did it again,
Oh,
and we were at 97 people, and I had like a little bowl that I would pass around. People could throw money in, and
yeah,
then I would just make like 400, 500 euros, and I'm like, and I took some of that money and used it to rent the same seminar room again. And I
yeah,
bought snacks. I bought a protein powder and protein shakes so guys could make protein shakes while they're
yeah.
listening.
Nice.
Uh, and then back in the days, there was a huge U.S. company based in L.A., RSD, Real Social Dynamics, and those guys were like the best dating coaches in the world. They were all making millions. They were all like young guys in their 20s and 30s,
Yeah,
and they were kind of touring the world giving seminars.
right.
And they were looking for like unpaid interns to manage their social media. So I'm like, I'll do it. So every time they had a shitty unpaid position, I said I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I kind of became.
And
Go
then
ahead.
sort of learn how to do, because social media, when they contacted you, you were new to that then. Or
Exactly. I was completely
okay.
new. I had nothing. And then, I became that weird Austrian guy that would always do all the jobs that they would give me. And then they invited me to Miami.
Yeah.
Literally, they called me like, hey, can you come to Miami? And I'm like, sure, like next year, next season. And they're like, tomorrow.
Whoa.
And I'm like, to do what? And like, oh, just assist you. You can crash on our couch. You just got to pay your own flight. So I quit university. I had a small job on the side. I quit all that, borrowed money from my parents, my bank, and I was on that freaking flight 2 weeks later.
Nice.
And then was just an unpaid assistant for 6 months. And then they offered me the coaching position.
Yeah.
And I was like your age. I was 23, your age when you did the crazy Mongolia thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, after a year of me working for free, they said, cool, you're gonna be the new instructor. Here's your world tour schedule. And it was like Amsterdam, Berlin, Las Vegas, freaking Melbourne, Sydney, Australia. And they're like, it starts now. Good luck. So I went on 4 world tours between 23 and 26. Then I started doing digital programs because the world tour really burnt me out.
Right.
And I made my first million with my first digital program in 2016, age 26. And then in 2000, so I did that for a while. And then in 2018, 2019, I transitioned to business consulting, where I said I help people build their own coaching business, just like I built mine, kind of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when was that? That was still that year, 2016.
Yeah, no. So 2016 was the first bigger project that I launched, and then I did that until 2018, 19. We made 3 to 5 million a year, and then I said I could show people how to do that. Right, let's do it. And that's where I then had the offices in Kyiv. I had a big international team. We had 2 offices in Kyiv. Then the war started, and now we're doing everything remote. So I'm just traveling around.
Right. And I bet that was part COVID as well. Was it? Everything just went online, and then you realized, look, this will actually be easier.
Yeah, for sure. So funny enough, COVID in Kyiv didn't really exist. Eastern Europe, I mean, I'm sure you've noticed, they're like, oh, no problem, like nobody really cared.
Yeah.
But we saw a huge influx of clients because they were like, hey, I'm doing home office now anyways, might as well build a business online now. And that was really cool. And then the war happened. A lot of my team, I sent them out already because I said, hey, when things got hotter before that, I said, listen, guys, if you don't want to be here, I get it. You work online, just get out, you can leave the country. Some people wanted to stay, and then they actually had to flee when the invasion happened. Crazy. So I happened to be in Austria because I wanted to go snowboarding. That's the crazy. It was snowing and all. Yeah,
a holiday trip out of Kyiv.
Yes.
Was it for you?
Dude, I like 2 days before the invasion, we were having dinner, laughing, all having a good time. And I look at my phone and I'm like, oh, it's snowing in my hometown in Austria. Holy shit, let's fly tomorrow. Yeah, let's go. So I packed like 3 t-shirts, and I go to Austria, and I wake up 2 days later to 160 WhatsApp messages. And then I see my apartment in the news with like a Russian helicopter flying around it. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I'll go back. So yeah.
Because if you were still there, you wouldn't have been able to get out either, right?
Yep. So some of my team was there. It took them 3 days to get out, like 3 days in a car. They had to
overland, right?
Yeah. Crazy stuff. And but I mean, it's been a very, very crazy ride. I'm very grateful. And to be honest, too, is like one of the best things about this whole journey is I get to talk to really awesome people like you. And you know, like I'm doing this for fun. Like I just want to have an excuse to talk to cool people. So I launched a podcast and I'm like, you
Love
know,
it. Love it.
so
Yes,
yeah,
you're very much like me when it comes to that human connection, conversation. Just
yeah,
everyone's got their own story. You've
yeah.
always got something to learn from someone else, no matter what, like 100%.
It's the
And
best thing ever.
yeah, yeah, it's yeah, it's great. I love it. Yeah, so that's fascinating, and that's what you do now. That's full time, bigger
Yeah,
team now
all
expanded,
day,
now
all day
based
long.
in Helsinki.
Yeah, exactly. Like that.
What's your day-to-day routine then? What does that look like?
Well, I wake up. So
Your
my day
team,
to
I
day.
guess, are running it behind the scenes now, or are
Pardon?
you still fronting it?
Say it again.
Your team are running it sort of behind the scenes, or are you still sort of very much involved in it? Because you can take a back step now or not.
Yeah, I can if I want. So last year, I just took all of June off. I was traveling through Italy with my girlfriend. Was that last year? I think so. So I was just like, hey, if you need something, WhatsApp me. I'm still there for my clients. I got some one-on-one clients that have my WhatsApp phone number. So if they need anything, you know, I just leave them a voice message while I'm on a boat or something.
Like,
And
yeah,
then, but to be honest, it's like you said earlier. I don't even want to take much time off. I'm like building. Like the moment I take a freaking 1 week off, I come back with 5 ideas that will keep me busy
yeah.
for the next year or so. You know,
It's true, isn't it? It is that. Yeah, yeah,
I just love it. I have so much energy. I'm so inspired. I love it. So, I wake up now because my girlfriend, she insists on working her job. She
yeah,
loves her job because I'm like, hey, just, you know, you don't need to like,
yeah.
you just live together. And she's like, no, I want my job. So she gets up relatively early at 6:30.
Okay.
So I wake up together with her. You
Yeah.
know, we have breakfast together. Then I hit my treadmill. I have a walking desk treadmill right here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when I'm,
That's nice.
it's the best thing ever. So this is the desk here. It can be adjusted. So it goes up. I start walking 5,000 steps. I reply to my emails. I get to work.
Great.
Um, yeah, I got my whole camera setup thingy here as well. I told you I just started setting it up.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and I'm just making videos. I love the social media part and the coaching part the most. I have a team that does the sales. I have
Okay.
a great marketer. He's the other guy on the award thingy. So he does a lot of the
Yeah,
marketing thinking together with me. And I'm like I said, I'm just using that as an excuse to talk to cool people.
yeah, that's quality, man. Yeah, because you do a lot of traveling, right? I've
Hmm.
seen that you're very much into your extreme sports as well. I've seen you wakeboarding, uh,
Yeah,
snowboarding. That's good.
snowboarding.
Dad towing you behind the car. That was ace.
You saw that?
Yeah, so that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
and
dad's
I saw
always
the
down for shit.
2023 wrap up reel that you did, and I was just like, fucking hell, he's into his extreme sports as well.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna have to snowboard or surf together one time in the future.
Dude, for sure. I'm down. I've never done surfing. It's very much on my list. I'd love
Okay,
to
so
do
it's
it.
wakeboarding that you do.
Wakeboarding, and that's just like from snowboarding. It's almost exactly the same.
Yeah,
But I want to do the wave surfing thing. It's so much on my list. I definitely want to, you know, go somewhere for a month and just go every day and get better.
yeah, same. I recently went to Lombok with my brother, and it was only 2 days surfing there. And it was great. But it's one of those, as you say, you need a good month really to see
Yeah.
progression for sure.
Yeah. It's different with snowboarding because with snowboarding, you're on the mountain, you go down. But with surfing, you kind of have to wait all the time for the perfect
Yeah,
wave. And that's like a
and then
skill in and
there's
of itself.
different locations as well. If you want to progress, you now need to hire the boat, go out to the bigger wave.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, shit. But you know, for me, it's always kind of been when I was younger, that's all we do in Austria. Like you don't have much else to do. 5,000 people Cowtown. You go skiing and snowboarding in winter.
Yeah,
You go jump off cliffs into the lake in summer.
yeah,
Anything else just bores me. And then I thought it's just kind of a phase. Like as when I become an adult, I stop it. But now I just have more money to spend on such hobbies, you know?
right, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Like one of the things I still want to do probably this season is heli skiing. I've never done it.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, yeah,
So they have really really amazing heli skiing companies in Georgia. not the state, but the country, Georgia.
Yeah,
And
great.
it's actually an Austrian company, and you have unlimited heli drops, so they just drop you up as much as you want. You stay in like a nice luxury hotel in between.
That would be
But you
nice.
know, like yeah, it's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you can join if you want. Like we'll see if we
Yeah,
make it
man.
happen this year,
We're
man.
gonna have to. I was reached out by my old paramotoring instructor a number of months ago, actually, and he mentioned going to Chamonix to do paraskiing. Do you know when you're?
Oh,
And I was like,
hey.
paraskiing. I said, he was, what I said, I've never done that, but that sounds hard. He was like, can you ski? I was like, yeah. And I know you can paraglide. I said, well, just go downhill. It'll be fun. And then you don't fall, you just pull. And then that paraglide
Yeah.
lifts you up. It just makes it sound a lot easier than it is. I'm like, so it's on my list to go paraskiing in Shanghai
Damn.
at some point. Has to be done, doesn't it?
Dude, I mean, especially if you can do paragliding already. I mean, I can imagine there's probably no learning curve. It's probably just like ski on and go, I guess.
I assume so. Yeah, I think I think well, we can already ski. You ski as well as snowboard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Snowboarding mostly though.
okay, you can ski, snowboard, and then other than that, I think it's just definitely getting your shoot handling, your actual paragliding
Hmm.
handling skills in check. And then other than that, like, and I'm not even that experienced, and this is the instructor telling me it'll be fine. I've had maybe one, two, three, four, five, six, maybe 12 flights,
Solo.
paramotoring and paragliding solo.
Damn.
That's it, 10, 12. And he's there saying, yeah, come to Chamonix and we will paraski. So fucking good.
I mean,
360 Instacam on your head,
yes,
that would be
yes.
sick, wouldn't it? So yeah, have to get that done. And heli skiing, yeah, would be a good one.
Yeah, I can imagine that to be the dream because there's no lift, you don't have to like, oh, let's go up quickly before all the other people. No, it's just there, and you and your buddies,
Long time. Yeah,
Yeah. Have you seen there's this really crazy event, I think it's called Red Bull X Alps or something. It's a race around the Alps
yeah.
and you're only allowed to either walk or paraglide. Have you seen that?
No, I've not.
It's super epic.
Like, so you're just hiking up to the next mountain and then paragliding down and then hiking.
Paragliding down, hiking
Yes,
up,
I've not
and
seen it, but again, that's what that guy Alex does, my instructor. He also mentioned that let's go
no
hiking.
way.
Yeah. So I was asking, oh, how would that work? He was like, you just hike up the mountain, paraglide off to the next mountain.
Exactly.
And
And I saw a documentary about that, and it's crazy. Like they're just running. They're running the whole time, and then they have a break as they're paragliding down. And
yeah, and
crazy
then
shit
off
like
they
that.
go again. Yeah, and I guess you'd paraglide into the next small village, right? Eat there, hike back.
Exactly.
Paraglide. Yeah, that would be
Exactly. And you need like a mandatory 8 hour break per day to go, because these guys, they wouldn't give us, they don't give a damn. They don't go to sleep, but they need to go to sleep. And then
yeah.
during the whole race, you're allowed to have one night where you go through the whole thing. And then there's like one guy's in the lead and he's like super far. And
Yeah, it turns
yeah.
into an actual race.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's
I
all there,
mean,
isn't it? In Europe, there's a lot. Like when I was younger, I just set off like as far east as I could go, and I was always sticking to Asia because it's so stunning and diverse, and you can do everything there, and there's no health and safety. So I was crossing borders illegally into countries that were shut down permanently to any outside foreigners, and I loved
Jesus.
it. I would get in, learn how to survive, come across a jungle community, and they would teach me how to survive, and then I would bounce back into Thailand from Myanmar, go Himalayas, skirt the border of Pakistan, where there's the Pakistan army. And I was told by the local that if I come across them, I need to go down on my knees, put my thumbs behind my ears, and say, I think it's Allah Akbar, which is like, Allah have mercy on me. And I was just
Yeah.
like,
Oh, Jesus
me and my
Christ.
friend were like, let's try it anyway. But then, now that it's been a good 10 years, I'm starting to see all of the opportunities in Europe too. There's
Hmm.
lots of, yes, it's the health and safety's there, but for the right reasons too now, right? Back then I didn't care for that stuff. But now, yeah, there's lots to do in Europe, and so I need to start taking more adventures in mainland for sure.
Says the guy who's been on more adventures than most other people ever. We were born in the same year. You're born in 1990?
Yes.
Did
Yeah.
you ever play like Tomb Raider on the PlayStation or something
Yeah.
that inspired? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Tomb Raider. Yeah. Crash Bandicoot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
Spyro the Dragon.
yeah, Spyro the Dragon. Holy shit!
Right. Yeah.
Did those games like inspire you? Was there like did they
Yeah.
ignite the
Honestly, you
spark?
know what? Probably because I always found that I was going for adventure games, and I would always love watching Tomb Raider the movies and James
Yeah,
Bond as well, and Mission
yeah.
Impossible, and even Action Man. Do you remember the little adverts on TV of like the
No.
Action Man figure?
Oh, the figure. Holy shit. Yeah.
He would be hiking up mountains, then he would like paraglide off the mountain, then he
Exactly.
would be scuba diving, then he would be on mountain bikes. And I'd be like, I want to get all of my license in land, air, and sea. And that's what I've done.
Oh, sick.
And maybe it originated from little things like that. But I
Mm.
was always thinking, like James Bond, for example, he can skydive, he can scuba dive, he can, cross deserts, cross jungle. And I think subconsciously I was always like, I want to learn how to survive in the desert, in the jungle, in the mountains. I want to learn how to scuba dive. I want to learn how to jump from a helicopter, jump from a plane, learn how to paraglide,
Yeah.
paramotor, land, air, and sea. So in the future, I want to do a mission that is sort of mission land, air, and sea.
Ah,
So
sick.
from one point to another point, big distance, via kayaking, scuba diving, cycling, hiking, and then like paragliding, paramotoring, hike up the mountain, as you said, paraglide off.
Yeah.
And I wanted, even with the Great Wall of China, we were trying to organize it, but we couldn't because it was COVID times. I wanted to start from the most eastern point of the Great Wall of China by jumping out of a helicopter, sliding into my start point, and like we go from there. Because I love that shit,
You
and
got
that's
that
pretty
license
much.
too?
Say again?
You got the skydiving license too?
Right, yeah, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, so I do it all. I would just now like to do it all on a TV show, get it all involved. And it was kind of like that with the Great Wall. So that was like 21,000 miles from kilometers from one side to the other with a film crew, not walking, but along the way we were, it was camelback, it was the dune buggies, it was the martial arts and living a day in the
Mhm.
life of a monk in Shaolin Temple. It was scuba diving the Great Wall of China. It was cycling or mountain biking, and so there was lots of different activities along the way whilst traveling the Great Wall of China. Uh,
Damn.
just the and a helicopter as well. We opened up the show via helicopter, so we did that. They just didn't give me permission to jump out. It was annoying.
Do you sometimes when you're planning your expeditions or when you're just like imagining things you kind of want to do, expeditions you want to go, do you have any sort of expedition where you're trying to like discover like ancient secrets or something like that? You've places like, like maybe try to find some pyramids that are allegedly in some jungle. Does that, because some people are like, that's all bullshit, there are no such things, and there's some people who think like aliens built it and whatnot.
Yeah,
Where are you on that spectrum, and does it fit into any sort of planned expedition?
yeah. I think I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't do a mission that in revolves around that, but that sort of stuff is fascinating. I do
Mm.
love like second guessing,
Yeah.
what happened there. Like, and even again on this Great Wall, we came across cave art, and one of there's this late or they assume it's a lady. This lady's hand on a cave, and they estimate it's around 8 to 10,000 years old. And I'm like, that is like the first ever sign of I was here. That was effectively the first ever selfie, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And looking at that, thinking, and right next to it, there's like almost a carving of a goat. And those goats are still here. They're still around the mountains. And we're looking at these goats. And then I'm seeing it on the cave wall, dating back. They say, again, scientists predict 8 to 10,000 years old. And I'm like, wow, they were living amongst and with our and these goat, well, not exactly the same goat, but the same species of goat were around 10,000 years when we were what was that life like? What the fuck was? And then you
Mm-hmm.
see paintings of sun gods, and then these images of like a big head and big beady eyes, and you're like, did they see something that we've not seen yet?
Yeah.
And then and when you start dabbling in that, and then you start thinking about there's more planets out there than there are grains of sand on Earth, and it's almost absurd to think that we are the only life. Like there's only one grain of sand out of all the grains of sand on our whole planet that sustain life. Bollocks.
Mm-hmm.
No way. And then you start dabbling into the universe and beyond. And so I love that stuff. And then obviously bringing it back to, isn't it, wasn't it that movie and the book, um, The Lost City of Z,
Yeah, where the
right?
guy goes in the jungle, tries to find it, and then
That's it.
and then
Yeah.
he
And
doesn't come back or something.
he discovers it. He comes back, tells everyone, and they say it's not because you didn't find the main end, or something happens where he has to then go back to re-find it,
Yeah,
and he finds it, and he dies finding it with his son, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
then later on, they learn that he was right. They did find an ancient civilization that has been buried in the jungle.
Crazy shit, dude.
Crazy. So that stuff is fascinating, and
Okay.
that stuff was really pulled out of me on the Great Wall of China as well.
Mm.
When and that's not even ancient. Like the first wall ever built, evidence suggests was 2,700 years old, which is
Mm.
fair whack.
Mm.
And that was by the warring states before China was China, and they create these little walls to separate the different states,
Yeah.
attacking each other, and then obviously expanded. And each emperor that came wanted to build their own wall until obviously the Mongol Empire, and they tried to build this big Great Wall of China to keep the Mongols out, but the Mongols still penetrated it, so they needed to expand it further. And so that it was fascinating, but that's like modern history, really, isn't it? 500 years old, the Ming Wall. And
Yep.
you see cave art 10,000 years old, and you're like, it's those
Fuck.
figures that your brain starts to like can't fathom what it
Mm.
would have been like to live back then. 10,000 years ago, man. You
It's
know?
you know the joke that is like, as a man, you think at least once a day about the Roman Empire. Have you ever heard of that?
I think I have, yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of do. Like, so it's like, damn it,
Yeah.
because I feel like these past things, they have some sort of mystical attraction. Like, you keep thinking, like, how did these folks live back then? What did they believe? What did they think when they looked up to the stars? And like you said, like, what did they potentially know that we don't? And that really messes with you.
Yeah.
Did you did you on these crazy journeys across like uncivilized lands, did you see anything strange or hear? I remember that one story you once told about the witch in Madagascar.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else like that where you said, like, I cannot explain that? Did you see weird lights or some shit like that?
Yeah. So I have seen in the sky like this big orange ball. This was actually in Wales, not actually on an expedition. This was just in the mountains in Wales, and it was this big orange ball. Didn't think anything much of it. I kind of thought that maybe it's one of those Chinese lanterns. Didn't cross my mind. I was just like, oh wow. But then all of a sudden it darted off. And not only did it dart off, it was over by real is like 20 miles away within like a split second almost. It was like boof. And then it changed direction almost like a 90 angle.
Oh,
And I remember researching, and there's been these sightings all over the world. Like you only have to YouTube orange balls found in the sky. And I think what that was is people are saying it's like a weather phenomenon.
yeah.
And so, it's probably a weather phenomenon. But at first, I was thinking for ages, like, what is that? I could almost see it within this within this orange ball, little pockets of almost like windows, man.
Oh,
Almost like where it's just like it's just weird. That's why I thought maybe it's a lantern, maybe something's flickering on the inside, causing
yeah.
patches within this circle. But the way it darted off, I was like, no, and there was no noise. It just whack, just
Oh, fuck.
it turned 90 degrees, and I was just like, what? And that was 2010.
Hmm.
But then I've seen unexplained things again in the sky that and I said to myself before I went off traveling, I said there will be things because I'm quite logical. My dad's very logical thinking. Like if there's noise going on, then it's someone's left the window open or what, and 9 times out
Yeah.
of 10 it is exactly that. Um, and so I've always found a very good reason or answer to most things, but there is some stuff that I just put down as either paranormal or just stuff that I can't explain.
Like
Stuff that
what?
is like that witch one, for example, because my version of that is I was in Madagascar and we came across a community, and that community we weren't supposed to come across. It wasn't on any maps or any GPS, and we were deep, deep in on the interior on a mountain range in the jungle of Madagascar. And miraculously, we came across a small community, which, to our surprise, which we were excited by. And we were in that community, resting there. The locals were great. There was maybe about 15 of them, no more. And they had this little hut that they gave us. It was like this little wooden shack, if you like. And we were sleeping there. It was Lever, Suzanne, me, Max, and then Gertrude, the chicken next to Max. And my take on it is I woke up and I saw Max all out of breath walking into the wooden shack, and I was like, "Oh, you're right." And he had a head torch and a machete, and he was out of breath, and he was like, "Oh yeah, no, we're good. Go back to sleep." His version, and I went back to sleep, and I remember waking up after having a bad nightmare to then seeing him with a machete, and I was like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" His version was he woke up in the middle of the night. Me, Lever, and Suzanne were all convulsing, and I'd never convulsed. I've never convulsed, but we were all convulsing. He looked over to the um to the door, and there were little slits within the wooden door, and he could see this figure, this silhouette, and it was full moon. Eerily enough, there was full moon that night, and he could see his silhouette. And he said, because they're very superstitious, they believe in bad spirits and witches of the forest, and we were deep in the jungle,
And
and
that's why you had the chicken with you, right?
and that's why we had a chicken. So you carry a white chicken with you to protect you from the witches and bad spirits, and then you set it free on top of the mountain. It's part of the journey. And they demand, they insist, like you have no hope without the white chicken, which is just like fucking hell. Um, and then, but his story is he sees a convulsion, he looks to the door, sees the silhouette, wavy hair, typical image that we have as a youngster on witches. And that image came from somewhere, right? And he shouted like, "Hey," or whatever in Malagasy. And then she gave this little giggle. He stood up and she ran. And he's a fit guy. And he literally grabbed his machete, head torch, ran out, ran after her, was running for a while. And then he said when they got to the entry of the jungle, she just gone. Couldn't hear her, couldn't see her. And then he said, I came back to the shack, and he said, you woke up, Ash, and asked if I was all right. And I said, I remember that. You came back with a machete, you were out of breath. And he said, yeah, and you had stopped convulsing. And then I was like, this is all great. It's a nice ghost story and whatnot, but why weren't you convulsing? And he was like, the only reason that I can think of is because Gertrude was sleeping right next to me. And I'm like, what? And then Suzanne and Leva also, Suzanne is from Brazil and she was well creeped out by this. But they also experienced having a bad dream as well as me. And then that morning,
Dang.
we're having breakfast, and all of the locals start sharing these witch stories deep in the jungle. They're not even here, they're not even on the map. And they're all sharing these stories of witches, and we pushed on. And Suzanne never slept in her own tent again. She was like, that scared her, I was like, what? And so, I'm kind of like with my Western mentality, don't be silly. But at the same time, I'm like, look, some of these stories originate from unexplainable things. And they've been on the island for over 2,500 years, longer, and I don't know. I'm like 50-50. Maybe it was something that isn't explainable. Um, maybe it's just something that, yeah, I will never know the answer to, and I can't find the answer to. So weird, weird. And another
Damn.
one was in the Gobi Desert when I was just in the middle of nowhere. It'd been like 5 days, I think, up to this point, hadn't seen a single person. And then I hear footsteps, like movement going on outside my tent at like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, what the fuck is outside of my tent? And I'm like, at this point, there was this almost, oh, like this cold shiver. Like, shit, if that's someone, he's here for a reason and he's here to
Yeah.
like, steal my shit or kill me or whatever it was. And then I heard breathing as well, panting almost. And I was like, is
Oh,
this animal? What is this? And then I sat up. I had my torch in one hand, my knife in the other. Each movement, I moved like maybe a centimeter every 5 seconds. It's that slow, I didn't want to make any noise to let them know that I was awake. I needed to be ready for whatever this was about to happen. I remember unzipping my tent, obviously minimal noise. And then I shined the light and it was a dog, it was a wild dog in the desert. And I'm like, how are you surviving out here, fella? There's no water. There's no water. Anyway, it was harmless. It slept. And at 5 o'clock, just after, again, I woke up to it growling. You know when a dog like is really growling and barking at
mm.
something? It growled and barked at something and ran after something in the desert.
Oh shit.
There's nothing, there's nothing out there. And I'm like, what the fuck was it barking at? There is nothing. What did it run after? And it disappeared. I never saw it again. And I was like, what the hell is there something in the desert with me?
Shit. And you're fucked. What are you gonna do? You're by yourself.
By yourself with, and the only pickup is like 4 days away if they find me on time because it's overland transport. So you're
Did you see
alone.
did you see the tracks of the dog in the sand or somehow or
No, because at that point it was more gravel.
okay, okay, okay.
Now the direction that I ran off because I heard it, I just don't know what it was chasing.
Shit.
It's yeah, and I'd have there's been a lot, in all fairness, there's been a lot of weird things like that
Hmm.
that I've not been able to and I never will. I'll never be able to, and yeah, maybe it was something, maybe there was also something else in the desert that was, wildlife, but 4 or 5 days, man, without seeing nothing, not even a little lizard. It's hard for me to picture that there was something else there.
Yeah.
And if there was, well, that's pretty freaky because if it was following me, then why was it following me? Was it an
Yeah.
animal? Was it a person? What was it? And I would have seen it if it was close because the desert is flat. You can see for miles and miles upon the horizon. So, yeah, spooky, man, right? Noisy in the middle of the wilderness outside your tent, gone midnight on your own.
Damn. Damn. I mean, do you since you started with that so early, do you still see yourself going on crazy adventures in your 50s? If so, you're probably fitter, more experienced than ever before. Do you still see a curve, like a curve of improvement there?
Yeah, I think what I love about this game, if you like, is it's not like boxing or UFC, where it's a young man's game.
Hmm.
You kind of want to look to be retired at like mid 30s, late 30s pushing it, because then you can't compete with these young guns coming through.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, because you're not pushing yourself to such, like with the boxing and with athletic sports, with the Olympics, you go in maximum capacity for a short amount of sort of intensity for a short amount of time. And so you need to be 100%. With what I do, you're not going to high intensity. It's gradual. So hiking through the desert, you're not sprinting at maximum speed through the desert. You can take the time to make calculated decisions. And I think then with that, yes, I almost died in the Gobi Desert, but now I've got that muscle memory and I've got that wisdom and experience on my side. Whereas next time I'll know what I'll need to do differently to face the Gobi Desert because I've been there before. I know what I needed because I remember at that time what I could have done with is this. So now I must prepare for that. And so, you've got people like Mike Horn, who is, I think he's mid 50s, maybe late 50s, and he's recently completed, he was the first to circumnavigate the planet via both poles with no motorized vehicles whatsoever.
I heard like
And like North Pole, I think he faced it in the winter, 24/7 darkness. And he's in his 50s. He's as tough as a coffin nail. So I
yeah.
think with me,
That's
there's a
crazy.
limit where I don't want to push my body. to what I have pushed it, where I have almost died many a times. So it's the level of now let's get that budget, let's get that team, let's get TV, let's create just as crazy expeditions, but with good backup, good evacuation, helicopter evacuation, safety nets, because that's something that I never had. None of the above. Even my insurance was invalid, so it would be a case of let's do things like this, maybe not as extreme. It doesn't always need to be extreme. Maybe I could dabble in and make it more about the locals, me traveling to the jungle, experiencing life with this sort of long lost tribal community. Or maybe it can be, there's following a migration by foot, the wildebeest, mission migration. Can I keep up with them and their journey? 2,000 miles, 4 months over the Serengeti across the Masai Mara, overcoming their challenges. It's been documented by David Attenborough and many other shows, but there's no evidence to suggest that humans can complete that same mission that the wildebeest do every year. Do man have what it takes to do that migration? Drop me in there with the wildebeest. Let's cross those river crossings with the crocs. Let's that. But then you'd have a van following you, tranquilizer guns and security. So it's like, yes, the risks are still there, because there are the snakes, the spiders, and you're not sort of in Africa on concrete roads. You're in the wilderness. You're in these national parks, where anything goes down. So that stuff I would love to do still, but with the right budget, the right team, and the right safety measures, because my girl
Mm.
just like can't live with that all her life. But me,
I can
when I
imagine. Has there ever been discussion that she joins you?
she actually said the other week that one day she would like to experience doing that, but she's not an outdoorie at all. She's
Hmm.
not, she's a bit of a princess. And so it would scare me, I think, seeing, I've had soldiers join me and be evacuated. To let my girlfriend join me would be reckless unless it was in the right section or
Yeah.
unless TV crew were there. And,
Mm.
that's why with Bear Grylls, with what he does, not taking any credibility away from him whatsoever, the man's a legend. But there's one thing doing this cool stuff with a film crew, but it's a whole different ball game when you're alone. When
Yeah.
there's really there is no safety net. You make a mistake, you will pay the full price with your life, and that's all there is to it. And now I faced that too many times, so now it would be nice to dabble in what he's dabbling in with that film crew, with that,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. For
um,
sure.
that's the goal is to have the crew to TV or social media and do ace stuff, but share it now with the world rather
Full
than
on. Yeah.
platforms, social media, and whatnot. You just
I
keep it.
mean, I see the clips you post on Instagram, the day by day kind of like
Yeah,
video diary of the Gobi Desert thing, and that is fucking insane. Because if you're a fitness coach, no matter what you say, some other guy has, like how many clips do you see of some guy doing crunches or sit ups, right? But
yeah,
that stuff there's nothing else like that.
no,
Doesn't exist. Like you were probably even the first guy ever with a camera in that area to like freaking document it with a video camera.
yeah, yeah, potentially, yeah. It's and it's weird sharing it 10 years on, a
Yeah.
decade on. It's and I took a pretty good camera out with me and set it up on a tripod, and I remember that being a huge ball ache and thinking, "Fucking hell, no one's going to even see this."
I was gonna say, like, did you ever feel like, fuck this, I'm tired? Like,
Yeah,
because it's extra work. It's already busy enough trying to
yeah,
freaking survive.
exactly. And I would say that I'm a natural on camera, but I wasn't a natural setting up the camera. And
Hmm.
there's people out there who travel and they're traveling to get content, and their content is epic. I'm not that. I travel and go out there for the experiences, and capturing the content is almost like homework.
Yeah.
After school, they send you back and you're like, fuck, it's not finished though, because I've still got bloody homework to do. It's
Yeah.
like that. So it was difficult. It was very hard for me to actually take off my 4-point harness, go into my backpacks and duffel bags, pull out the camera tripod, walk 400-500 meters in front, set up the
To
camera,
walk through. Yeah.
walk back to my trailer, and it was just a huge ball ache. But I had people texting me on the sat phone, like the production team, saying you need to be capturing it. and I ended up really capturing stuff at the worst of times, the worst of times. But I'm so glad for it now. And I see people's comments saying like, it can't be that, you can't be that exerted if you're. And I was like, if anything, that it gave me a little bit of respite by taking the trailer off and
Yeah.
walking without the trailer to set it up.
Mm.
You know, almost that, although it is knocking up the mileage and your toenails are falling off and your blisters, all of that, you're almost giving all of the rubs a bit of rest from the. So sometimes at my worst, I would almost do that just to distract me from the pain of pulling the trailer. Um, so yeah, it was hard, but I'm glad I did it because it's one thing doing a marathon in a difficult country a day, along roads, but then there's another thing doing a marathon a day in the wilderness with no van, with no support crew, against the truer elements, pulling it over mountains and through the desert, 120 kilograms. It's just crazy. I look back and I'm like, you jammy sod surviving that. It's scary, but it's great to be sharing that. And to be honest, I think we've reached, which is interesting. I've always wanted TV for that Mongolia trip, but I've reached more people from this Mongolia series than I would have reached if I got a UK TV commission.
Mm.
That's the power of social media. 10 years ago, releasing the footage, it would have never have done that.
Good
But
point.
today, you can do that.
Good
It's
point. Yeah.
mad. I think it's been like 6 million almost already, and I've not finished yet. So,
Damn.
so
Epic.
yeah,
And like I said, like you said, man, like as much of a pain in the ass it is in the moment to shoot it, but now, I mean, you're gonna look at that footage in 50 years. You're gonna show that to your kids, to your
yeah,
grandkids, and stuff like that. And
yeah,
that's also like one of the things that I've always I travel with a videographer. So he's like my guy, and we've been traveling together for like years. So all the footage is always done by him. And
yeah,
I deal with it exactly the same way. I'm like, I'm here to fucking enjoy the experience. You're here to get the shot. Like, I'm going snowboarding. I'm like, catch up, get the camera ready. The moment I touch the powder, I'm gone, and you gotta better catch that,
yeah,
because otherwise you just turn bitter. And you had to do all that alone. And
yeah.
so I can really feel that pain. It really
Right.
sucks.
And you know what? It's still annoying, isn't it? Even with you and how you've got the cameraman, they still have
Still alive.
obligations. They still need you to do a piece to camera. They
Yeah.
still need you
Yep.
to stop and explain what you're doing today. So still, even then, it still feels like a burden.
Yeah. True. True, man. True.
It's
So you've mentioned the wildebeest thing. Is that the next thing? What's
um, it's not necessarily the next thing. I'm planning another potential world first record for this year. This is the
or
first podcast
can
I've said it
can
on.
I was gonna say, can you talk about it? How much info can you give us?
I can't give much info just yet. Only because like I can like really shout about it, but I just want to make sure that it's got the green light and that it's a go ahead before I talk about something that I can never make happen. Because
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I
No,
can
make sure.
come
Remember
back
this.
and be like, oh, that thing that I mentioned, I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. And so it's more just because I'm really sort of sticking to my guns and being a man of my word. If I say I'm going to do
Yeah.
something, I have to follow through.
I
Um,
hear you. I hear you.
so it's one of them, but it is exciting. It is totally different. It's not a hike. Um,
Mm.
it's looking to be South America, which is a new
Ooh.
continent for me. And so it's gonna be big, and it's a potential world first record, which is very exciting. And I want to get out there
I
August.
think I know what it is.
Oh yeah,
I gotta say, but I think I have an idea.
yes,
I think.
and I'll just be neutral.
Did you read that book about freaking, this is a real book, but President Roosevelt, who, independent of what you're gonna do, this is not a sign or anything, but there's a book about literally President Roosevelt. I think it was Roosevelt, after he lost the re-election, he went to go through the Amazon. He went on a freaking Amazon expedition for real. He actually did it, and he went
Yeah.
with like 200 people, and like 8 came back, and he almost died as well. And it's the entire book about him having a diary through that freaking journey. And
Mm,
their malaria takes a bunch of people, then they get completely lost and they lose their canoes, then he breaks his leg, he got an open wound and shit like that.
shit.
Yeah. And
That sounds similar to Henry Morgan Stanley, who did. in the Congo in Africa.
Oh,
Similar,
I,
similar, very similar. Took like the same amount of people, and they were all locals, right? That he took from the.
yeah, exactly. And they're all saying, "Don't go there, don't do it." And he's like, "Oh, I'll pay you." I'm trying to find the name of the freaking book. I forgot.
While still doing that as well, let me quickly text because I have someone who's going to call me, so I'm just going to let him know. Call me later instead.
Yeah, sure. We're gonna wrap things up anyway soon. I don't want to take
Yeah,
too
no
much of your time.
worries. No
Oh,
rush.
River of Doubt is the book
River of Doubt.
by Candice Millard. I read it because I saw um freak I forgot it. It got recommended to me. But yeah, that kind of stuff just like hooks me in. And now obviously also talking to you, I'm like, I want to go on like smaller adventures as well. Starting, I used to do that as a kid, just go out, just go exploring the wilderness around my
Yeah,
house and stuff like
yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah, I think it's embedded deep within us all. Has to be, right? It has to be because that's all as our ancestors would do. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's the true, it's the most realist form of being primal. I think it connects us a lot. I know a lot of people say martial art is the truest form, but I actually think it's one step back. It's
Hmm.
surviving. It's
Hell yeah.
survival. It's because you'd cross new land, wouldn't you? You would head out and find new, or you like even the nomads still do it today. You'd move with the seasons. You would learn what the animals are doing and the
Yeah.
migration you need to eat, so you would follow them. And so you on the go, you would be testing your physical, mental, spiritual self. You'd be hunting, you'd be gathering, you'd be battling the elements. You'd have to be learning. Almost your instincts would be at its highest survival form, which I think we've all still got it. But for many of us, it's covered in a deep, deep layer of dust. And it'll only ever be wiped out until we are dropped into the wilderness again. And give it a week or two, you'll start to break into that wild side, which is you becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable and you finding out what our ancestors used to deal with. And you will find yourself dealing with it in a very similar manner because you'll be forced to, otherwise, you'll be dead. And I think that is like, whoa, shit. I'm really connected back to how it used to be.
Man, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap things up. Ash, where can people find you? Where can people contact you? How can they get more stuff of you?
It's all just my name, Ash Dykes, on Google, and everything's there. My website, my Instagram, my TikTok, Twitter, my Facebook. I've been disabled from, so I don't even know why. But it's all out there. And my
All
latest
right.
book is Mission Possible, and my latest show is The Great War, which drops this year.
Ooh, so people can already see it on airlines. I've seen it. Where will it drop for the non-airline people?
So it's already aired across China and
Mhm.
across the airlines in China. So China had sort of first right refusal, and now it will be, it will be everywhere.
Oh shit! Hell
Yeah,
yeah!
deals in Australia, New Zealand, deals in Germany, Switzerland, France, America. And so my distribution team are sort of just working on all of the deals and getting
Sick.
contracts signed.
I'm
So that
hyped to
would
look
be,
at, man. I'm hyped to look
yeah,
at it.
man.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, folks. Check him out. He's a top G. He's the one of the best, greatest adventurers of our generation. And dude, I appreciate you being on.
What's up, man? Appreciate it. Great
And
conversation.
And we're wrapping things up here. What an amazing episode. Thank you so much for listening. And if you say, hey, I also want to build a business, I want to follow my passion, I want to monetize my skill, my hobby, or expertise, and I want to do this thing online so I can travel around, maybe not as crazy as Ash. But if you want to do some sort of thing where you're your own boss, then go ahead and book a free consultation call with us over at maxtornow.com/call. You fill out a quick 2-minute application, and then you get patched through with someone from my team or me personally. And on that call, we will be looking at your skill, at your hobby, at your business idea. We will be telling you what you need to do to start, to get your first clients, how to price it, what to offer, where to post, what kind of website you need, and all that jazz. We will literally guide you and put you into A to Z plan for free on that call. We, of course, will also talk about what our potential collaboration would look like if you want us to help you out long term. But maxtornow.com/call is the URL where you can book your call, and I guarantee you will get a ton of value from that. That being said, thank you so much, and talk to you soon.